Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft.
I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here tonight to arm yourselves with knowledge about a tool that's being covertly used to usher in what Adolf Hitler and George Bush termed New World Order, and that's mind control. Mind control is very prevalent in this country and around the world. These criminals that are in control of our country operate on the philosophy that secret knowledge equals power. Many government secrets and personal reputations were staked on the belief that I could not be deprogrammed to remember those things that I was supposed to forget. They were wrong. For as intelligent as these perpetrators are, they're limited in their thinking by their own immorality. They don't have wisdom, they don't think deep, and they never considered the strength of the human spirit.
Welcome back, people. Today we're going to be continuing with our examination into mind control. In the two previous parts we looked at some of the origins of these projects and also how they're being used today. We spoke about the blonde hair, and we spoke about the different types of programming such as alpha, beta and delta. So if you've not seen those videos, please go and watch them, as they are a necessary prerequisite for this one. Okay, so in today's video we're going to be looking at Alice in Wonderland, because as I've previously mentioned, this is a movie that was made specifically for programming. Actually, I'm going to be real with you, every Disney movie is made for programming. Every Disney film is a psyop or a psychological operation for short. There's not one that isn't, because Disney was made for that. So they all have their individual triggers. However, there are a few films in particular that they really, really like to use, which are, of course, one, Alice in Wonderland, which we're looking at today, The Wizard of Oz, and Peter Pan. But this video is going to be about Wonderland. Okay, so remember I told you about beta programming in the last video, also known as kitten programming or bunny programming, primarily a sexual-based program, okay? A little more on this. Beta is the second Greek letter, and it represents the sexual models and sexual alters that the programmers are creating. The primitive part of the brain is involved in this type of programming. An early sexual abuse event will be used to anchor this programming. Then these slaves will develop sexual abilities that go far beyond what the public is even aware is possible. They will also receive the worst kinds of abuse imaginable. Beta alters generally see themselves as cats or bunnies. Now, Alice in Wonderland, this book originally was written by Lewis Carrol, real name Charles Dodgson, and this book was basically centered on his relationship with a young girl called Alice Liddell. And this book is quite literally telling you the story of a young girl disassociating from trauma and sexual abuse into an alternative reality. And if you've seen the movie or read the book, you know when she keeps changing sizes that this is another representation of disassociation. Okay, there are some seriously suspect pictures of Lewis Carroll with Alice, and I will leave a link in the description if you want to look at those to make your own mind up. But from my research, from what I know about him, this man was a pedo, and this entire story was based on this poor little girl, Alice Liddell, who was actually a real child, who was really going through abuse, who was really disassociating. Okay? And they've got you reading this to our kids, man. Like, fucking hell, mate. Okay, so the entire story is about Alice's initiation into the belief of the occult and their pursuit of anarchy and chaos, because the unpredictable power of Wonderland is that of pure chaos and no rules. And what's important to mention here, I think, that is that in Carol's story, we find out that the Mad Hatter was accused of killing the man known as time. Yeah? This is why Saturn, or Kronos, reigns supreme in Wonderland, because there was a take back of power from Saturn, who we know is synonymous with time and rule enforcement. So the Mad Hatter was accused of killing time, so Saturn came to reclaim his power. And I say all this to say that it's clear that Saturn, or Kronos, or whatever title you want to pick, plays a pivotal role in the journey of Alice, because time plays a pivotal role in the journey of Alice. Therefore, Saturn plays a pivotal role in mind control, and we already know that they both sum to 93. So that seems to make perfect sense. Now, the mascot, or the identifier, or the symbol of the Alice in Wonderland programming is the white rabbit. In the book, the white rabbit represents Alice's handlers, or programmers, and going down the rabbit hole is just another metaphor for disassociation, much like how I told you in The Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy goes over the rainbow. That's also about disassociation. These are trigger words, trigger phrases rather. Now, there are a few triggers associated with Alice in Wonderland. However, in this video, we'll be focusing on the bunny, for obvious reasons, if you can take the connection from the title of this video. So some of the symbols from Alice in Wonderland were the monarch butterfly. That's just a general Alice trigger. The white rabbit, of course, is a trigger to follow. The clock was a trigger to hurry up. And in Lewis Carroll's sequel, Through the Looking Glass, the mirror was a trigger to enter the world behind the glass. Okay, so Alice in Wonderland is known to be used to program young monarch slaves. The slave is obviously Alice, and the handler takes the role of the white rabbit, as I mentioned. And the white rabbit tells Alice, or the subject, to go down the rabbit hole, which is another way to tell the slave to disassociate from what they're about to experience, so to disassociate from the trauma. Again, we've spoken about disassociation before. When somebody is experiencing trauma, our brain literally honeycombs or compartmentalizes the experience in order for us to deal with it. And what I mean by this is you create another personality that deals with the trauma for you, so you don't have to remember it. This is how mind control slaves are programmed. The trauma creates these disassociated identities, which then make themselves manifest whenever you experience this trauma again, okay? So they pop back up whenever the situation's about to happen in order to preserve your sense of self, in a way. I mean, even though your sense of self has already been fractured, but to preserve that front alter you have, that your first name, that alter that you're in for 99% of the day, when prior programming, to preserve that, that is when the alternate personality will come out during the trauma, okay? So in a nutshell, you develop a compartment in your brain, a little area behind amnesiac barriers that was actually created by a neuron pathway shutting down in order to compartmentalize the memory of abuse, so the rest of your mind can function normally like nothing happened. So if you guys know about Kathy O'Brien, if you read her book, she says that as a child she developed two different identities, one to deal with the sexual abuse from her dad and the other to deal with the psychological abuse from her mother. And what makes this process so effective is that these personalities or alters exist behind amnesiac barriers. So you have no idea that they exist when you're in your front alter. They will only surface in line with the relevant trauma. So that means that they can be triggered with codes, sounds and hand gestures by handlers. As I stated in the last video, clinically this was known as MPD, multiple personality disorder, but it was renamed to dissociative identity disorder. Now, without knowing the ins and outs of Alice in Wonderland, I mean, off top, most people think it's a pretty trippy fucking film. Like, they think Carrol was off LSD or some shit, and he might have been, but my personal opinion is that he was a fucking nonce, like the rest of them. And we get this book pushed on us in schools and in the history of literacy, because that's just what they do. They just like to fuck with us like that. And that's not the first author that I've researched and found out is a paedophile. You can do some more research. I'm not gonna sit here and list them all because I'll make videos on them, but all of these authors that are presented to us as greats, they've got some seriously shady backstories. Like, bruh, Roald Dahl was cool with Crowley and worked for MI5. I mean, You just don't know that about these people until you look outside of the bullshit narrative that you're presented. Yeah, Roald Dahl was about some shit, man. Please look into Roald Dahl. He was not just an author. Okay, so now we need to talk about this place here, which I found, called Lookout Mountain in Laurel Canyon. Oh, God, right, now where do we start with this? Let me read a brief extract on it, okay? On Wonderland Avenue in the Hollywood Hills, there's an 8-bedroom, 12-bathroom compound that was built in the early 1940s. The exterior is a little drab and there is nothing particularly remarkable about its appearance. But the complex, once known as Lookout Mountain, has an incredible history. Between 1947 and 1969, some of Hollywood's most talented scriptwriters, producers, editors and directors made furtive journeys to this place to work on top secret projects, filming nuclear explosions. I'm calling bullshit on that one, first of all, and I'll explain why later. The United States Air Force established Lookout Mountain in 1947 in order to produce movies and photographs of nuclear tests. It was a full-service military facility. Had military and civilian filmmakers. They would head to the test site in the Nevada desert or Pacific Islands and capture footage of exploding bombs and bring them back to Laurel Canyon for editing and post-production. Okay, so over its lifetime, this studio produced some 19,000 classified motion pictures, more than every single Hollywood studio combined today. So I guess that makes Laurel Canyon the real motion capture capital of Hollywood. Officially, on paper, the facility was run by the US Air Force and did nothing more nefarious than process AEC footage of atomic and nuclear bomb tests. The studio, however, was clearly equipped to do far more than just process film, okay? There are some indications that Lookout Mountain Laboratory had an advanced research and development department that was on the cutting edge of new film technologies. Such technological advances as 3D effects were apparently first developed at the Laurel Canyon site, and Hollywood luminaries such as John Ford, Jimmy Stewart, Howard Hawks, Ronald Reagan, Bing Crosby, and Walt Disney were given clearance to work at the facility on undisclosed projects. There is no indication that any of them ever spoke on their work at the clandestine studio. I just want to bring to your attention that it's on Wonderland Avenue, by the way, in Hollywood Hills. And so this facility retained as many as 250 producers, directors, technicians, editors, animators, etc., both civilian and military, all with top secret clearances. They all had to report to work in a secluded corner of Laurel Canyon. Accounts vary as to when the facility ceased operations. Some claim it was 1969, while others say the installation remained in operation longer, which, you know, if history tells us anything, it's that when they say shit gets shut down, yeah, it doesn't get shut down. It just goes underground or just continues to operate, but from the shadows. So I wouldn't be surprised if this shit was still in operation today, but just in one of their domes. Now, much like Area 51, and the facility actually remained unknown to the general public until the early 1990s, though it had long been rumoured that the CIA operated a secret movie studio somewhere in or near Hollywood. Filmmaker Peter Carrol was the first to learn of its existence through classified documents he obtained while researching his 1995 documentary Trinity and Beyond. So if it wasn't for him, then there never would have been these declassified documents that confirm this place, and they would have just been saying it doesn't exist like they do with all the other shit. But it appears that this facility was also used to create films for MK Ultra mind programming, films that are still in use by the global elite today. One cannot help but wonder how many former Nazis were active in producing these training films. It's also worth noting is that Walt Disney, who Fritz Springmeier stated was a leading illuminist, visited the facility. And the fact that this place was on Wonderland Avenue, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that Alice in Wonderland was made in this studio, okay? Without a doubt. Fritz also spoke about a maze of tunnels and pedophilia underneath California. Fritz also spoke about a maze of tunnels that run underneath California, and again, I don't doubt that exists because I'm going to show you something a little bit later. Much like at Walt Disney, there is most definitely underground tunnels because they've got that Bookie 33 club there that's got like an 18-year waiting list to get into. So I have no doubt that there are in fact secret tunnels going all under LA. And not just LA, they're all over the world. That's a fact. There's tons in the UK. There's fucking tons. And that's how they take these children and traffic these children. And that's how all these children go missing every year, and you ain't got a fucking clue about it. Do you not know how many kids go missing every year? Have you ever looked at the actual stat? It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. How are that many children going missing and they're unaccounted for? That doesn't make sense to me. There's no logical way for me to explain this other than that deep dark thought that's in the back of my head. And it's that the majority of these are victims of child trafficking. And it's just something that just doesn't get spoke about. We can see a few pictures on a train somewhere of a missing child, but nobody can really understand the extent. Nobody seems to understand the extent of how many fucking children go missing each year. It's just wrong. Where are these children going? Where are they going? I think I know where they're going. Okay, so from my understanding, the vast majority of these MK programmed movies were made at this studio, and the fact that they produced 19,000 motion pictures really just speaks volumes. And the fact that it's literally on Wonderland Avenue, I mean, I don't really need to carry on here, do I? I think I've made my point. And remember I told you in the last video that Marilyn Monroe was one of the prototype betas, okay? I'm sure you all know, but if you didn't know, well, MM was a beta monarch slave. When I say MM, I mean Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was a beta monarch slave, and I'm pretty positive that one of her handlers was Anton LaVey, much like Jane Mansfield, who we will talk about a little bit later. Now, first of all, I need to show you this. This is Marilyn Monroe's February the 8th, 1953. Okay, this 53 is very important. We're going to swing back to this later. Remember this, 1953. Secret Pentagon ID to Lookout Mountain lab pictures. Now, I'm obviously speaking from pure speculation here, but my opinion is that she visited here to have her programming updated or maintained. As you can see on her ID, her name is Norma Jean. Marilyn Monroe was an author, okay? And I've told you about MM before. They love to imprint this MM on our consciousness. It's fucking everywhere. Like Mickey Mouse is a big one. Meghan Markle, there's tons. There's loads of it. MM. And when you see a W with an M, it's just an MM as well, because it's the same thing, because the W is just an M turned around. So those W's and those M's are used interchangeably. A WM name or a WW name, so say Walt Whitman. If you've seen Breaking Bad, Walt Whitman is another MM name, okay? Because they flip it. Don't let them try to confuse your head like that. An M and a W, that's the same shit, man. That's the same shit. So whenever you see that W, flip it to an M and see what the word says, because there's always something going on there. Okay, and why do they do this? Why do they do this? I think they do this because M is the 13th letter. And M is related to reincarnation and cycles, okay? And we're all stuck in one big soul cycle right now. And that's why I think the MM is used so heavily, because again, they love to take the piss. That's all they do. They just take the piss out of us to our face. That big M on McDonald's, and then when you look at the McDonald's sign from the side, it's got the McDonald's underneath, right? So you turn your head, it's like a 13, because the McDonald's acts like the pillar or the phallus or the 1, and then you've got the M, which is the 3, so it's the 13, and they're just taking the piss. But that's why they do it, because the M is the 13 and it represents the soul cycles. It's also important. M and M, 13 and 13. That sums to 26. And as we know, God sums to 26. So MM, 13 is the soul cycle. 2M sums to 26, which is God, which would represent a transcendence of the soul cycle. So it's almost like a duality contained within itself, if you know what I mean, because the 13 represents almost entrapment, but the 26 represents transcendence. So again, it's that duality, again, just fucking with your brain. And we know that the 26 prime is 101, and again, if you've been through all my stuff, you know that 101 represents stargates. I'm definitely not going into that again now, because that is a long topic, and we've got loads to talk about. So yeah, Marilyn Monroe, MM 1313, this is her ID from 1953 to go to Lookout Mountain, Laurel Canyon. And of course she made movies, so she could have been shooting movies. She made a few films, but no, I don't think so. I think my thoughts are a little more accurate. There's definitely some mind control going on in that place, okay? And when you look at the dates this studio was in operation, it lines up so perfectly with Paperclip, okay? I have no doubts in my mind that that studio was full of Nazis practicing their new mind control techniques that they just mastered through the systematic ritual abuse of thousands of innocent Jews. Okay? The dates are too perfect. The dates are too perfect. USA must have been like, yeah, do you know what? Let me bring all you Nazis over here. We're just going to build you a whole new Rush studio. Come here. Make all the films you want. Listen, the Nazis didn't lose no war, man. Nazis fucking run shit still. Okay, so I want to mention Anna Nicole Smith now for a second because her life was paralleled with Monroe. Like a lot of these betas, I'm sure you have all seen this video if you've not, but it's Anna Nicole Smith in her house. But she's been triggered into a child order by her husband, who is her handler. And this video came out in court, and it's so fucked up, man. He was the one recording, and you can see how out of it she is. I'll put the video in the description, but this is a screenshot from it. Her daughter's like putting clown makeup on her, and she's in a different state of mind. It's not nice to watch, but she's in a different order. She's in a different state of mind because she's not I say she's not Anna Nicole Smith. I don't even know if that's her real name, but she's not the alter that we were used to seeing. She was triggered into that child alter, and the husband decided to capture that, a piece of shit. It's quite difficult to watch, you know, if you know what happened. But yeah, I mean, she died at 39 as well. Surprise to fucking prize. We all know about 93, 39. That's all I talk about on this channel. Remember, MK Ultra equals 93, so that's no surprise. She was a victim of MK and she died at 39. Video evidence of her disassociating on camera. Okay, now you see this studio, this Laurel Canyon. Guess who owns this studio after it's been renovated into a home? Now, this caught me by surprise. I did not expect this, okay? Fucking Jared Leto, bruv. Now, I've always known this guy was kind of booky. Purely because he was in a band called 30 Seconds to Mars. And when I was a kid, I remember watching this Barry King interview about he was exposing some shit from Area 51, and he was talking about these things they have called jump rooms, and they're basically, it's like an elevator that just takes you to Mars in like 30 seconds, no cap, I'm not even joking. And there is so many people that are corroborating this, that these jump rooms exist. Like you go into a room, bang, don't ask me how the fuck it works, I don't know how it works, but they transport you to Mars in 30 seconds. And that's where the name of that band came from, 30 Seconds to Mars. That shit was an ode to jump rooms, I'm telling you. And I know there's one in LA somewhere. They're probably all over the world. If you want to learn more about this, do some research into it, because I haven't looked into the jump rooms for years. However, I will after this. Look up Project Pegasus. But we can talk about that in a later video. So yeah, it's weird as fuck to me that Jared Leto copped this. I mean, is there a fucking jump room in the house? I didn't even think about that. Did they have a jump room in that movie studio? Boy, I don't even know. You see, this is where my brain just starts to do mad shit. But the fact he bought that house is weird, and he only copped it for $5 million. Like, I know that's a lot of money, but that's not really a lot of money considering where it is and its history. I mean, if you know anything about him in the first place, you know there's no way he ain't under some kind of MK. When he did that Dallas Boys film about the transgender person, he must have dropped to like a $105. He was skinny. He looked ill as shit. You can see here. And he's also done quite a few shoots with the infamous pedo Terry Richardson. And I've got no qualms calling this guy a pedo, because you can just Google his name and see the amount of sexual abuse allegations fired at him. It's fucking disgusting. From what I've read, I think he's a high-level pedo, and apparently he's a procurer, and he was supplying children to a certain ex-president. So when Jared was shooting with for Suicide Squad, they made a point to plaster this all over the paper. Apparently these two were chilling, okay? And I'm not sure if this had anything to do with his Joker programming, but this is what got me. Check this in the paper. They call him Uncle Terry. If you didn't know, uncle is a code word for pedo, okay? You see in the films when they've always got that dodgy uncle that came over, it's always uncle, uncle. Uncle is a code word for pedo, which is why I decided to put this in here, because there's no reason to, why are you calling him uncle? Weird. They're not related. That's a code word, okay? That is a code word. And given some of the pictures and quotes you see from this man, I know exactly what he's about. I mean, I don't even want to talk about this demon too much. But if you're interested in him, all you need to do is one search, and you can even do it on Google, because they don't even censor the claims that have been flooded in against him, okay? Okay, we're kind of gone off topic with that Terry Richardson. Well, I mean, not really, but I mean, I'm almost certain that this man has his hand in beta programming, but let's get back to my original point of this video. Okay, see, this is the problem with this stuff. I'm just learning as much as you guys are right now, so I get an idea in my head for a video sometimes, and I research it, and I find like 20 other links, and then the video ends up 10 times longer, and I end up jumping up around all over the place. I need to mention that. So if at times my videos seem like they're all over the place, it's because this apparent separate information is in fact connected, and it's not separate at all. Everything is connected, which is what the whole point of this channel is. It's what I'm trying to show you. Okay, so let's have a little recap. We've got Alice programming, based on a book made by a paedophile. Alice program is used to create beta sex slaves, okay? We know that this movie was created in Lookout Mountain Studio in Laurel Canyon, which is seriously suspect history. Some shady shit goes down there, okay? We know this studio was responsible for over 19,000 motion pictures in Hollywood. It was in operation from 47, and how many times is this year gonna fucking pop up? I'm almost certain that anything that happened in 47 was just fake at this point, for real. And we've also seen that the primary beta, the first prototype to take the world by storm, Norma Jane, aka Marilyn Monroe, we've seen that she had an authorized Pentagon ID from 1953, which gave her access to Lookout Mountain Studio, which happens to be located on Wonderland Avenue. Okay, now, we circle back to the original thought that started me with this investigation, okay, and that is the Playboy Mansion. The White Rabbit, of course. And I'm just going to cut straight to the chase here. Hugh Hefner was a high-ranking programmer handler with a degree in psychology, and the Playboy Mansion was nothing more than a beta house. Okay, and when I say a beta house, I mean a house where beta programming was implemented and maintained. Okay, so let's look at some of these playmates, because boy, when I show you how some of these have died, you're going to be like, what on earth is going on here? Okay, before we do that, first things first, shout out to fightingmonarch.com, because this is where I first saw this link, which opened up a whole can of worms for me. This is Bryce Taylor, and in her book, Thanks for the Memories, she details her experiences as a beta monarch sex slave, and she exposes her handlers and drops mad names in the book, specifically Henry Kissinger and Bob Hope. She mentioned that she was abused in a home in Woodland Hills, and the author of this article at Fighting Monarch has made a connection to the playmate Patty DeFeck, who was also born in Woodland Hills, which apparently has a very tight-knit community. So his line of thinking was, if she was a ritual of MK Beta slave program in that neighborhood, then the Playboy model Patty DeFeck more than likely was as well. As you can see here, this is their thoughts on it, and I believe they are correct, honestly. And this obviously led me to look into Playboy straight away, and as soon as I found these two covers, I was pretty much a done deal from here. The Monarch Butterfly, of course. So much like Disney World, the Playboy Mansion has secret tunnels that run underneath it that lead to a bunch of celebrity houses, as you can see here. This came out in the news a few years back, and they tried to downplay it by claiming it was an April Fool's joke. Yeah, right, sure. Those tunnels are as real as the MK going on inside that house, and you can see the architectural blueprints here. Okay, so playmates. Holly Madison, who was married to Hugh Hefner at one time, she released a book called Down the Rabbit Holes. And on the front cover, she's doing the exact same pose as the Stepford Wives, which I've told you in the previous videos is what these programs are modelled on. And here's a weird ass picture of her in a butterfly dress, and whatever the fuck that is on the right, I don't even know. But that's just another ode to the butterfly and the monarch symbol. I don't like this picture at all, though. It creeps me out, man. It really does. In her book, she basically just exposes all of Hugh's weird idiosyncrasies and reinforces the idea to me that he is most definitely a handler. When you read through some of the stuff that he used to put these girls through, shit is foul. Like, real foul. Like, the only way you would stay there and be subjected to that type of treatment was if you were mind controlled. So check that book out for some surface level information on the topic. Okay, now Paige Young, the 1986 Playmate of the Year, shot herself in the head in 1974, there's that number again, leaving a note that read, Hugh Hefner is the devil. As you can see here, it read that she killed herself next to an American flag and a pentagram that had been placed on the floor next to her. Need I say more? Really? I'm going to quickly fly through some of these Playmate stories and how they've died. I'm not going to go in depth on all of them because this video is already way longer than it's supposed to be. As per usual, I'm awful at keeping these videos short, so if you don't like the longer videos, I apologise. You know, there's just too much information to pack in. It's either that or I split it up into loads of different videos, and I hate doing that. I'd rather just slap it all in one, to be honest with you. Right, next, Ashley Mattingly, who also shot herself in the head at age 33. Sacrifice number. Funny that. It was all put down to drugs, obviously, as per usual, swept under the rug. There was Stephanie Adams, who died with her 7-year-old son plunging into a pool in New York. I mean, she plunged into a pool with her 7-year-old son at 47 years old. What? Why? What? Why would you do that? That is... what? No, again, she was 47. And Paige Young, I forgot to mention, killed herself in 1974. So, you know, there's a general pattern coming on here with the 47s. Again. Holly Madison was also Miss March in 2011. The first woman we was talking about who was Hugh's wife, okay? Miss March in 2011. 211 is the 47th prime, okay? Again, no fucking surprise. If you've watched my Crowley 9/11 video, you know why they love that number so much, okay? They're obsessed with 47. Absolutely obsessed with it. The compass on the front of the Freemasonic logo is set at 47 degrees, for fuck's sake. Okay, next is Jasmine Fior, or Fire. I don't know how you say this, but Jasmine. Her body was found mutilated and stuffed in a suitcase. Listen to this. She was so badly mutilated and disfigured that they could only identify her by the serial numbers on her breast implants. Like, no cap, that is exactly what the story says. That's how badly mutilated she was. That is completely and utterly disgusting. And note, she also died at 32, right before her 33rd birthday. Same numbers, over and over again, 33, 47. I'm going to put the rest of these on the screen because honestly I can't be going through all of these right now because there's so many and it just goes on and on and on. Okay, now the last thing I want to draw to your attention in this video is Hugh Hefner. Okay, he was born on the same day that Prince Philip died. Okay, Hef was also born in 1926, like the Queen, and 26 has deep ties to the royals. Okay, and we've been over this in the previous video. Both of the Queen's coronations were written on dates 2/6 and 6/2. Royal also sums to 26, so does God. Also note the Queen's coronation was the same year that Playboy was founded, okay, which is 1953. 53 is the 16th prime. Remember earlier when I showed you that picture of Marilyn Monroe's ID and I told you to remember that 53? There's a reason I told you to remember that, because that's the year that Playboy was founded. So the year that Playboy was founded, the primary beta goes to this MK Ultra factory, Lookout Mountain. Like, that's too many connections to be a coincidence, okay? Bear this in mind. Marilyn Monroe was born on the 1st of June, whilst Prince Philip was born on the 10th of June. Both dates read 1/6 like 16. The 16th prime is 53, okay? Like when Playboy was made. Marilyn Monroe was the prototype bunny. You could say she was the inspiration for the look adopted by the majority of Playmates, okay? Especially people like Jane Mansfield, who also came to an untimely ending in a fucking car crash. Okay? Again, she was born in 26 and died in 62, Marilyn Monroe. Hef was born in 26 and the Queen's coronations were on a 2/6 date. The Queen was born in 26. There is a lot of connections here going on with Marilyn Monroe, Hugh Hefner and royals, okay? But there's more. Add the cherry on top. She died on August 4th, people, which, if you didn't know, is the 216th day of the year. And we talk about this number all the time because 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. Okay? It's also the 36 triangular number, meaning if you add 1 through 36, you get 216. It's also why Prince William was born on the date written 21/6, okay? So, Marilyn Monroe died the 4th of August, okay? Let's see whose birthday is on that day. Oh, look, Obama. Oh look, another MM, Meghan Markle, another link to the royal. Remember, M is the 13th letter, so MM is 26. Remember, royal equals 26, so any MM royal is just an ode to that in and of itself. And come on, the fucking Queen Mother. Like, what are the chances of that? Seriously, there's too many links here to the royals and Hugh Hefner and Marilyn Monroe. And I'm not even done here. The Queen Mother was buried on the same day that Hef was born and the same day that Prince Philip died. Like, there is way too many connections to this 9th of April date and way too many 26s and 16s popping up all over the place. I hope you're keeping track of this, because it is confusing, I know, but this shit is all connected. Run it back and listen to it again if you're getting confused. But the images on the screen should help you, okay? Now, I say all this to say that Hugh Hefner, Marilyn Monroe, the Queen, and all them lot, they're all bloodline. They all come from a certain bloodline. That's why all these dates are linked, okay? It's all about bloodlines. They're obsessed with them. There are certain bloodlines that have been hunted and preserved for thousands and thousands of years, okay? And the powers that be have the technology and black book projects like Oak Tree that can identify a child's DNA and bloodline before they're even born. Okay, but that's a topic for a later time. I don't want to go too far off in the deep end, but if you're interested in that, please research Project Oak Tree. Okay, let's get the basics out of the way. Playboy sums to 93 like Saturn and MK Ultra. It also sums to 33 like the age Ashley Mattingly was when she died. Okay, it's also got the 96 in there, and Saturn is the 69. So there's a lot of reflections here. I mean, no surprise really. We know that the Laurel Canyon Lookout Mountain closed down in 69. So there's another link, okay? Remember I said Playboy was made in 53. That's the 16th prime. Marilyn Monroe was born on the 1st of June, written 1-6. Yeah? Prince Philip was born on the 10th of June, written 10-6. All these links to 16s and 53s, because 53 is the 16th prime. Yeah, well, 16 is also a 4-way match with Playboy. It's also the legal age to have sex in a lot of countries, so there's definitely that aspect to it as well, given that we're talking about beta slaves. Now, the main one I wanted to bring to your attention, Follow the White Rabbit sums to 233. And off top, that is so similar to 223, or the Skull and Bones number, that I have no doubt is what it's secretly paying homage to, because in the last video we spoke about the sphenoid bone, remember, which forms part of the protective encasing around our brain, which has direct ties and links to mind control. Surprise, surprise, MK Ultra with the C also sums to 233. Mind control, MK Ultra mind control with a C sums to 233. Okay, much like Follow the White Rabbit, yeah? So does Fraternitas Saturni, which is just another way to say the fraternity of Saturn, which I told you plays a pivotal role in the Alice story. Come on people, this is all connected. 9. Okay, now Alice in Wonderland and Missing Children are also a triple match, okay? Notice the only variation is in the reverse reduction cipher, where the numbers are mirrors, 89 and 98. Now I've already showed you how Playboy Bunny and Mind Control are a double match. I popped that up earlier if you didn't see. Right here, Playboy Bunny and Mind Control, double match. Playboy Bunny also sums to 53, like the year the Playboy Mansion started. 53s all over the place, as per the numbers are connected. Finally, I wanted to show you this. Hugh Hefner actually sums to 64 and 35, okay? 35 we know is 53, and we know that's the 16th prime, and that's connected to the year 1953, which is the date that Playboy was actually made. And the 64, well, I just told you about the 64. He was born on the 9-4 date, which is just a 6 upside down. Okay, so obviously it makes sense that the Playboy Mansion also sums to 64, okay? His name contains 2 numbers that are directly linked to the place where he became famous for. I mean, coincidence? I think not. Honestly, I don't know how people say geometry is not real. I mean, given the amount of evidence that I provide here, I don't know how you can rationally chalk all of this up to coincidence. I really don't think you can, okay? And remember, I told you that this 9-4 date seems to be attached to Hugh, Marilyn Monroe, and the royals. It's an indication that they're all of this certain bloodline, okay? And guess what? The divine bloodline sums to 49, which is just another variation of this date, or the 46, you know? And also, I don't think there's anything divine about this bloodline at all. We know that they're obsessed with inversion, so it's more than likely that it's an inverted bloodline of Christ, okay, which we know is propagated by one particular species from the Aldebaran constellation. They're obsessed with DNA. I don't think I have to name any names here. I think it's quite obvious. I'm going to look more into this connection between these lot, because all these dates, it's way too fishy. All these 9th of Aprils, the 16s, the Marilyn Monroes, there's a lot of connections going on. The next episode, we're going to be checking out The Wizard of Oz. We're going to go into that a little bit, show you some of the signs and the triggers from that. And yeah, we'll crack on from there, but we'll get more into that into the next episode, alright? This one was way longer than I thought it was going to be, so I apologise for that, but I hope you enjoy it, yeah? Appreciate you all.